My idiot brother thinks he's such a good inspector, can't wait to see his face when he has to sell Grandpa's building. The inspector's betrayal initial post. I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but I need to get this off my chest and maybe get some perspective from people who aren't emotionally invested in my family drama. I'm Marcus, 32, and I've been a certified food safety inspector for 8 years. It's not the most glamorous job, but I take pride in helping restaurants maintain standards that keep people safe. My work has always been about integrity, making sure businesses follow protocols, educating owners about best practices, and yes, sometimes issuing violations when necessary. But always fairly, always by the book. 6 months ago, my grandfather passed away. He was 92, sharp until the end, and had built his life around a small restaurant property in the downtown district. The building itself is 3 stories, restaurant space on the ground floor, 2 rental units above. Grandpa hadn't operated the restaurant for years, but he'd maintained the space meticulously, hoping one of his grandchildren might revive it someday. In his will, he left the property to me, specifically mentioning my food safety expertise as the reason. Marcus will know what to do with it, he'd written in a handwritten note attached to the will. My sister Rachel, 2 years older than me at 34, works as a senior health inspector for the city. Different department than mine, I work for the state, but similar field. At the funeral, she'd seemed oddly interested in discussing the property, asking detailed questions about my plans, the building's condition, its current value. I thought she was just being supportive, maybe offering professional advice. We'd always been close, or so I thought. Both of us had followed similar career paths, both believed in public service, both understood the importance of food safety regulations. The property appraised at $2.1 million, largely due to its prime downtown location. The restaurant space needed updating but was structurally sound. I'd been working evenings and weekends to prepare it for either lease or sale, carefully going through every system, every surface, documenting everything with the obsessive attention to detail that 8 years of inspection work had ingrained in me. I knew those spaces better than my own apartment, every pipe, every wire, every corner where violations might hide. That's why the first violation notice confused me so completely. It arrived on a Tuesday, official city letterhead, Rachel's department logo prominently displayed. The violations listed were extensive: improper ventilation in the kitchen, evidence of pest infestation, deteriorating floor surfaces creating safety hazards, inadequate temperature controls in cold storage units. The required repairs would cost approximately $45,000, according to the attached estimates. I stood in that kitchen for an hour after reading the notice, genuinely questioning my own expertise. Had I missed something so fundamental? The ventilation system had been serviced 2 weeks prior. I had the receipts. The pest control company had given us a clean bill of health just days ago. The floors were original hardwood, worn but solid, exactly the kind of character features that modern restaurants paid premium prices to install. The cold storage units weren't even connected yet. They were brand new, still wrapped in plastic. I called Rachel that evening. "Hey, did you see the inspection report on Grandpa's place?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. "Oh, that." Her tone was oddly dismissive. "Yeah, one of my junior inspectors must have filed it. You know how thorough we have to be, especially with family properties. Can't show favoritism." "But Rachel, half of these violations don't even make sense. The cold storage units aren't even operational yet." There was a pause. "Look, Marcus, maybe you're too close to this. Sometimes owners don't see problems clearly. Just fix what needs fixing." Or, another pause, "You could always sell. The market's tough right now, but I know someone who might give you a fair price, even with the violations." Something in her tone set off my internal alarm system, the same instinct that helped me spot restaurants cutting corners or hiding problems. "How much?" I asked. "Maybe $900,000? It's not great, but with all these issues and the market being what it is. $900,000 for a property worth $2.1 million. I ended the call politely, but my mind was racing. In my 8 years of inspection work, I'd seen every kind of violation, every attempt at fraud, every corner-cutting scheme. But this felt different. This felt personal. The second notice arrived the following week. New violations, structural concerns requiring engineering reports, possible asbestos in areas that had been certified clean a decade ago, zoning compliance issues that hadn't existed when I checked with city planning the month before. Estimated remediation costs, $78,000. Then came the third notice, and the fourth. Each more aggressive than the last, each adding violations that ranged from questionable to physically impossible. By the 5th week, the accumulated violations totaled over $300,000 in estimated repairs. The city was threatening condemnation proceedings if issues weren't addressed within 30 days. I tried reaching out to Rachel's superiors, but was told all complaints needed to go through proper channels, which could take months. I consulted with other inspectors in my State Department, showed them the reports. Every one of them found inconsistencies, impossibilities, violations that referenced equipment that didn't exist or codes that didn't apply to buildings of this age. "This is wrong," my colleague Janet told me after reviewing the latest notice. "This isn't just aggressive inspection. This is something else." That night, I sat in my grandfather's restaurant, surrounded by violation notices that made no sense, facing repair costs that would force me to sell at a massive loss, and realized two things. First, someone was deliberately targeting this property. Second, given the access needed to generate these official reports, that someone was almost certainly my sister. The realization hit like a physical blow. Rachel, who'd helped me study for my certification exams. Rachel, who'd stood beside me at Grandpa's funeral. Rachel, who'd said family came first, always. The betrayal cut deeper than any financial loss could. But I'm an inspector. I document. I investigate. I follow evidence wherever it leads. If my sister thought she could use our profession, our shared calling, to steal our grandfather's legacy, she'd forgotten something crucial about her little brother. I don't just conduct inspections. I'm exceptionally good at them. That night, I started my own investigation, and what I would uncover over the next several weeks would destroy not just my relationship with my sister, but everything I thought I knew about her. Update 1. The investigation. It's been 3 weeks since my original post, and the situation has exploded beyond anything I could have imagined. I hired a private investigator and a forensic accountant, specifically ones who specialize in municipal corruption cases. What they've uncovered isn't just fraud, it's a systematic pattern of corruption that goes back years. Let me start with the immediate findings about my property. The investigator, a former state auditor named David Chen, started by requesting all inspection records through FOIA requests. What he found was staggering. There weren't just the 5 violation notices I'd received. There were 55 separate reports filed over 6 months, all backdated to create an extensive history of problems. Many were filed on dates when the property was literally locked and empty, with me holding the only keys. The forensic accountant, Maria Santos, traced the digital footprints. Every one of these reports was created using Rachel's unique inspector login credentials, most during off hours when she was supposedly at home. The metadata showed extensive copying and pasting from other properties' violation reports, with addresses and details hastily changed. In several cases, she'd forgotten to change all the details. One report referenced a commercial freezer system from a seafood restaurant across town, another mentioned a specific model of fryer that had never been within 5 miles of my grandfather's property. But here's where it gets worse. This wasn't Rachel's first time. David uncovered a pattern going back 3 years. 17 other properties had received similar treatment. Sudden explosions of violations after ownership changes, typically through inheritance or family transfer. In every case, the property was subsequently sold at 40 to 60% below market value. In every case, the buyer was one of 3 LLCs, all registered in Delaware, all with anonymous ownership structures. Maria followed the money. Those LLCs traced back through shell companies to a real estate investment firm where Rachel's boyfriend, Connor Walsh, is a senior partner. Connor, who Rachel had introduced to the family just 2 years ago. Connor, who drove a Tesla and wore $5,000 watches on a commercial real estate salary. Connor, who'd been so sympathetic about Grandpa's passing and so interested in my plans for the property. The scheme was elegant in its simplicity. Rachel would identify properties through her access to city databases, specifically looking for recent inheritances or family transfers where emotions and finances might make owners vulnerable. She'd generate enough violations to make holding the property untenable. Then Connor's firm would swoop in with a generous cash offer to help the distressed owner escape the nightmare. The properties would then be flipped, often within months, for massive profits. 17 properties. 17 families. Estimated total profit, over $12 million. But Rachel had made a crucial mistake with my property. She'd gotten greedy, too aggressive. The sheer volume of violations, the impossible timeline, the physically impossible claims, it was too much. And she'd forgotten that I wasn't just any property owner. I was an inspector who understood the system inside and out. David interviewed several of the previous victims. Margaret Chen, a 72-year-old widow, had sold her husband's bakery building for $400,000 after Rachel's department filed 42 violations. The property sold 8 months later for $1.3 million. James Thompson, who'd inherited a small strip mall from his father, faced $500,000 in supposed safety violations. He sold for $750,000. The property flipped for $2.1 million. She was so kind during the inspection, Margaret told David, tears in her eyes. She said she was trying to help, that she could reduce some violations if I acted quickly. She even recommended a buyer who could handle properties with issues. The pattern was clear, documented, undeniable. But I needed more than patterns. I needed proof of the conspiracy, evidence that would hold up not just in civil court but in criminal proceedings. Because this wasn't just about money anymore. This was about justice for 17 families who'd been robbed by someone they should have been able to trust. That's when David suggested something that would change everything. We need to let her think she's winning. The plan was risky but necessary. I would reach out to Rachel, act defeated, desperate. I'd express interest in selling, see if she'd take the bait and explicitly connect me to Connor's firm. Meanwhile, David would work with contacts in the state attorney general's office, building a case that went beyond my single property to encompass the entire conspiracy. The call to Rachel was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Every instinct screamed against it, but I forced myself to sound broken, overwhelmed. You were right, I told her, my voice carefully modulated to sound exhausted. I can't handle all these violations. That buyer you mentioned, are they still interested? The excitement in her voice was barely concealed. Oh, Marcus, I think that's wise. Let me make some calls. Don't worry, we'll get this sorted out. Within 2 hours, I had a call from Connor Walsh himself, offering $950,000 cash, quick closing, as his condition. I know it's below market, he said smoothly, but considering all the issues your sister's department found, it's really quite generous. Your sister's department. Not the city. Your sister's. The arrogance of it, the casual acknowledgement of the connection, was breathtaking. David was recording every word. I asked for a few days to consider, bought time while the investigation expanded. The state attorney general's office had taken interest, especially after learning about the pattern of targeting elderly and recently bereaved property owners. Federal investigators were pulled in when they discovered the interstate nature of the shell companies. Meanwhile, Rachel grew impatient. The violations kept coming, each more ridiculous than the last. One claimed the building was sliding off its foundation, despite engineering reports showing it solid. Another cited biological hazards that would have required hazmat teams if real. She was panicking, overplaying her hand, creating a paper trail that would ultimately become her undoing. 3 nights ago, she showed up at my apartment unannounced. I wasn't prepared, hadn't expected a confrontation. But David had taught me well, always be recording, always protect yourself. Just sell the damn building, Marcus, she said, pacing my living room. You're being stubborn for no reason. It was Grandpa's, I replied simply. Grandpa's dead. The venom in her voice shocked me. He left you a gold mine while I got nothing but some savings bonds. Do you have any idea what it's like, watching my little brother inherit millions while I scrape by on a city salary? There it was, the resentment I'd never seen, the jealousy that had festered into something monstrous. So you decided to steal it? She laughed, bitter and sharp. Steal? I'm trying to help you, you idiot. Connor's offer is generous given the circumstances. The circumstances you created. The mask slipped completely then. Prove it, she said, stepping close. You think anyone will believe you over me? I've been with the city for 12 years. I have commendations, perfect reviews. You're just bitter about some violations. I remained calm, knowing every word was being captured. I don't have to prove anything, Rachel. You've done that yourself. 55 false reports, all with your login. 17 other properties with the same pattern. Federal investigators are already building the case. The color drained from her face. You're bluffing. David Chen sends his regards, I said quietly. He's been very thorough. She left without another word, but not before trying to grab my phone, correctly guessing I'd been recording. I held firm, and she stormed out. Within an hour, I had a text from Connor, rescinding the offer. Within 3 hours, David called to tell me Rachel had been attempting to delete files from the city system. Attempts that were all being logged and preserved by IT staff who'd been alerted to the investigation. The wheels are in motion now. Next week, I meet with federal prosecutors to give my formal statement. 17 families have joined a class action suit. The city is conducting an internal investigation that's already uncovered 2 other inspectors who may have been involved. And Rachel has hired a lawyer and isn't speaking to anyone in the family. Our mother is devastated, our father in denial. They keep asking how I could do this to my own sister. They don't understand that she did this to herself, to me, to 17 innocent families who trusted the system she corrupted. But the investigation continues, and I have a feeling the worst revelations are yet to come. Final update. Justice served. 4 months. That's how long it took from my first Reddit post to today, when I watched federal marshals escort my sister from the courthouse in handcuffs. 4 months of investigations, revelations, and a complete dismantling of what turned out to be one of the largest municipal corruption schemes the state had seen in decades. The trial lasted 3 weeks, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The evidence David and Maria had compiled was overwhelming, and Rachel's attempts to cover her tracks had only created more evidence. Every deleted file had been recovered, every backdated report timestamped, every communication between her and Connor preserved. The full scope was staggering. 23 properties over 4 years, not the 17 we'd initially found. Total fraudulent profits, $18.7 million. But the human cost was what really resonated in court. Margaret Chen testified about losing her husband's legacy. James Thompson spoke about the depression that followed selling his father's property for pennies on the dollar. 3 families had been forced into bankruptcy trying to fight the violations before eventually selling. Rachel took the stand on day 12. I'm not sure what her lawyer was thinking, but it was a disaster. The prosecutor systematically walked her through each fraudulent report, asking her to explain the impossible violations, the non-existent equipment, the inspections conducted when she was provably elsewhere. She tried to claim it was all Connor's idea, that he'd manipulated her, but the prosecutor produced text messages where she bragged about their scheme, calling property owners marks, and celebrating each successful forced sale. The moment that sealed her fate came when the prosecutor showed a message she'd sent Connor about my property. My idiot brother thinks he's such a good inspector. Can't wait to see his face when he has to sell Grandpa's precious building. Should have left it to me anyway. Connor flipped immediately when faced with federal charges, providing detailed testimony about their partnership in exchange for a reduced sentence. He revealed that Rachel had initially approached him with the scheme, not the other way around. She'd identified him as someone with the connections and capital to make it work, seducing him as much with the profit potential as with anything romantic. Their relationship, it turned out, was as fraudulent as the inspection reports. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all counts: conspiracy to commit wire fraud, extortion under color of official right, honest services fraud, conspiracy to commit money laundering, and 12 counts of filing false official reports. The federal charges alone carried up to 20 years. The state charges added more. Yesterday was sentencing. The judge, a stern woman named Patricia Hendricks, did not mince words. Ms. Martinez, you held a position of public trust. Citizens relied on you to protect their health and safety, to enforce regulations fairly and honestly. Instead, you weaponized that trust for personal gain. You targeted vulnerable people, the elderly, the bereaved, families dealing with inherited properties and complex emotions. You perverted a system designed to protect into one that plundered. The court sentences you to 11 years in federal prison, followed by 3 years supervised release. You are permanently barred from any position requiring professional licensure or public trust. 11 years. Rachel, who just turned 35, would be 46 when released. Her inspector's license was revoked permanently. Her city pension, which she'd been contributing to for 12 years, was forfeited under the corruption conviction statutes. The fines and restitution orders totaled $8.3 million, which will likely never be fully paid. She's lost everything: career, freedom, finances, reputation, and family. Our parents still struggle to accept it. They've asked me repeatedly how I could do this to Rachel. I've stopped trying to explain that I didn't do anything to her. I simply stopped her from doing it to others. They visit her in federal detention while she awaits transfer to prison. I don't. As for me, the journey has been surreal. The city, eager to distance itself from the scandal, offered a settlement of $3.8 million for the damage to my property and the emotional distress caused by their employees' actions. They also paid to reverse every violation, officially declaring my property free of any infractions. 17 other families received settlements totaling $22 million, though no amount can truly compensate for what they lost. But here's the unexpected part: I didn't sell the property. Instead, I've done something that would have made Grandpa proud. Using part of the settlement, I've converted the restaurant space into the Martinez Center for Food Safety Education. It's a training facility where new inspectors learn not just about health codes and regulations, but about ethics, integrity, and the sacred trust they hold. Every student who comes through learns about the Rachel Martinez case, not to shame my sister, but to understand how corruption can start small and spiral into something monstrous. The 2 apartments above the center are offered rent-free to inspectors in training who couldn't otherwise afford to take the lower-paying entry positions that lead to careers in food safety. It's a small way to ensure that the next generation of inspectors enters the field for the right reasons. David Chen, the investigator who helped expose everything, now teaches a quarterly seminar at the center on identifying and investigating municipal corruption. Maria Santos conducts workshops on forensic accounting for public servants. Even Margaret Chen comes by sometimes, sharing her story with young inspectors about the real human cost when public servants violate their oath. Connor Walsh received 5 years in federal prison and was ordered to pay $12 million in restitution. His real estate firm collapsed within weeks of his arrest, investors fleeing the radioactive association. He'll be disbarred upon release, his own career as thoroughly destroyed as Rachel's. The other 2 inspectors implicated in the broader scheme took plea deals, receiving 2 years each and lifetime bans from public service. The city implemented new oversight measures, including random audits of violation reports and mandatory rotation of inspectors for repeat violations on single properties. It's not perfect, but it's progress. Sometimes I stand in the center, watching earnest young inspectors learning about proper ventilation standards or temperature controls, and think about the strange path that led here. Rachel and I both started with the same training, the same oath to protect public health and safety. She chose to pervert that oath for money. I chose to honor it, even when it meant destroying my own sister's life. There's no satisfaction in that destruction, no joy in watching her led away in handcuffs. There's only a deep sadness for the sister I thought I knew, the family she hurt, and the trust she shattered. But there's also pride in knowing that 17 families got justice, that future inspectors will learn from this case, and that Grandpa's property now serves the public good in a way neither Rachel nor I could have imagined. Rachel has 4 months before her transfer to federal prison. She's apparently teaching food safety classes to other inmates in detention, a bitter irony that's not lost on anyone. Her lawyer is appealing, but everyone knows it's hopeless. The evidence is too overwhelming, the crime too egregious, the betrayal too complete. I received a letter from her last week, the first communication since her sentencing. It was short, just 3 lines. I hope you're happy with Grandpa's building. You always were his favorite. Congratulations on winning. Even now, she doesn't understand. This was never about winning. It was about stopping someone who'd weaponized public trust for private gain. It was about justice for families who'd been robbed by someone sworn to protect them. It was about protecting the integrity of a system that, for all its flaws, serves a vital public good. The Martinez Center for Food Safety Education officially opens next month. The dedication plaque will read, "In memory of Alejandro Martinez, who believed in doing the right thing, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." Grandpa would have understood. He would have mourned what Rachel became, but he would have understood why I had to stop her. In the end, that's all that matters. To those who asked if I regret my decision, no. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that my sister chose corruption over integrity. I regret the pain this caused our family. But exposing her crimes, stopping her from hurting more families, and ensuring she faced justice? That's not something I'll ever regret. The inspector's oath we both took says we promise to serve with integrity, protect public health, and maintain the trust placed in us by our communities. Rachel broke every part of that oath. I kept mine. That's the only truth that matters. The center opens in 3 weeks. We already have 42 students enrolled for the first session. Each one will learn not just about food safety, but about the responsibility that comes with public trust. They'll learn about the Rachel Martinez case, about how small compromises can lead to massive corruption, about the importance of standing up to wrongdoing even when it's family. Maybe that's Rachel's true legacy, not the family she hurt or the money she stole, but the lessons her downfall teaches. Every inspector who trains at our center will know her story. They'll understand the consequences of betraying public trust. They'll see what happens when greed overcomes oath. 11 years in federal prison. No pension. No career. No family support. A lifetime ban from any position of trust. $8.3 million in restitution she'll never be able to pay. That's the price of her choices. Meanwhile, the building she tried to steal stands as a monument to integrity, training the next generation to be better than she was. Grandpa's legacy isn't just preserved, it's transformed into something that serves the public good. That's justice. Not revenge, not winning, justice. And that's enough.